All right, welcome everybody. As promised, we are here for the webinar on room acoustics and acoustic foam featuring Dennis Foley of Acoustic Fields. By the way, this is Ken from Homebrew Audio. Welcome to the webinar. Joining me today, as advertised, is Dennis Foley, the acoustic engineer who invented the acoustic foam that I've been raving about. Also joining me is Ali Dodds, also from Acoustic Fields, and Lisa Therio from Homebrew Audio, who will be posting links in the various comment sections and on the social media sites. Speaking of the social media sites, we will be putting out information as it comes in, links. If I want to give you guys an interesting link or a relevant link, we will put that there on our Homebrew Audio Twitter page, and also on our, on the Twitter page, we're going to be using hashtag #RoomFoam. In fact, let me see if I can put that in the comments here. Hashtag #RoomFoam. So that will be if you want to follow along on Twitter, and then also on our Facebook page for Homebrew Audio, which, in fact, let me put our Twitter and Facebook page URLs right here in the chat window. So there you have it. Right. So the reason why we're doing this also on social media, you can put the your questions in the comment sections of the YouTube page and on the Google Plus events page. But it takes about a minute for it to get from you to us, and also about a minute from it to get from us to you, and that's just a weirdness of Google Hangouts on air. So we're going to at least cut that lag time in half by sort of keeping stuff up on our social media sites. So we are here today to talk about room acoustics and acoustic foam, more specifically. So Dennis, would you please introduce yourself and Acoustic Fields and kind of talk about what problem acoustic foam solves and what it's used for and what it's not used for?
Hi everyone, good to be here. It's our foam is a 8-year endeavor in corporate boardrooms and voice rooms. It's the end result of 8 years of studying room response curves, voice curves, building special conference and voice rooms for high-end corporations and clients. And after about a year of the R&D on it, I decided to take a completely different approach to what was currently available in the marketplace. So that's what I did. And the two foams I had as a basis for research and development were Auralex and Sonex. Those were the two popular foams at the time. Those were the two popular foams everyone used without question. They were spec'd into every job. Nobody even challenged why. Nobody asked what was the basis for putting these foams in. Why were they that good? Well, after about a year or two of putting them in rooms, I decided they're not that good. They don't have the right curve. They don't have the right response curve. Not sitting in hundreds and hundreds of rooms and measuring and listening personally myself. So I took it upon myself to build our own. And I went after a particular frequency response range that is critical for voice. Voice comes alive in recordings from 300 to 800 cycles. And all of you that work in voice know that to be true. Now, you may want to disagree with me on the lower end of that scale, and you may want to disagree with me on a little bit of the upper end of that scale, but really, our arguing issues would be pretty confined to that 300 to 800 cycle range. That's where foam really comes alive. Well, all foams absorb 100% at 500 cycles. So we have from 500 to 800 by definition almost taken care of. We don't really have a chance to work on that. So what we do is we look at below 500 cycles, and what do we have there? We have 125, we have 250, and we have 500. and then we have everything in between. That's the area I focused upon. And then I didn't look at 100% absorption. I looked at the rate of absorption. I didn't necessarily want to have 100% absorption at those two frequencies and everything in between. So trial and error, 12 different attempts, 12 different prototypes, and then I finally came up with the curve that I wanted, which was this curve here that we have in our 2-inch foam, which is perfect for voice. So that's a little bit of the endeavor behind the foam. Foam is a sound-absorbing technology used inside rooms. That's the only place you use it. It won't stop energy. It won't stop sound coming in or out of the building or sound from leaving the building. It's not barriers. It's not a barrier technology. It's sound-absorbing technology. So you have to use it within the room to get what you want inside the room. It's cheap, well, relatively speaking, and economical.
So you can't use this to satisfy your neighbors if they're complaining that you're cranking your electric guitar or your drums too loud in your apartment, right?
No, because you have to remember the starting frequency is 125, and it just does a little bit at 125. So really, the starting frequency is 250, where vocals start to come alive.
And like Dennis was saying,
anything.
What Dennis meant, I'm sorry.
The noise.
I'm sorry. There's delays in using Google Hangouts. I apologize. I just wanted to make it clear to folks, because almost everybody that I told, hey, I've got this new acoustic foam that I'm putting on the walls of my room, they all thought, oh, I need to do that because my neighbors think that I'm too loud. They think that it's soundproofing technology, what you call barrier technology, and I just wanted folks to understand very clearly that that is not so. This is strictly for inside your room, and it won't stop your loud drums or your loud guitars from going through your walls into your neighbor's house.
It probably won't even stop your loud voice from going through. You know, it's a barrier. It's not barrier technology. People confuse the issue. There's two types of technologies that we employ in room acoustic treatment. We employ the technologies that are within the room, dealing with sound absorption and sound diffusion, and then we deal with the noises that occur outside the room from getting in, and then we try to keep the energy from within the room from getting out. It's completely two different approaches. That's why I use the term barrier, because there really is no such thing as soundproofing. It's kind of a claim that manufacturers have used to rope people into believing that their products do many, many, many things correctly, and most of the time they do a few things right.
All right. So I'm looking here. It's okay. Okay, so let's see. I am going to go through a couple of questions here, Dennis, if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
This is question number 1 here. We had some people send in questions prior to the broadcast. Where is the best place to put the foam if you only have, well, one of the packs on your site there has say 4 pieces in it. If you only had 4 pieces of that foam or just a few pieces, where would you start placing the foam on your walls?
Well, I would have to know some more information first. First off, 4 pieces of foam is not really going to help a lot, no matter what the setup and the usage is. I mean, it'll help some. It'll give you an idea of the technology and how it works. And it will help in very, very near field situations. But if you're in a room, you have surface area. The sound of the room is directly related to the amount of surface area in the room. The room sound is controlled by the materials in the room and the amount of surface area in the room. That's why room tuning is a process where you learn about the sound of the room and learn its good parts and its bad parts, and then prescribe the appropriate medicine, so to speak, for that. But the lateral dimension in hearing, look at the way our ears are shaped. They're vertical on our heads, attached to the sides of our heads. What does that tell you about the sound fields which we hear? We hear in that lateral horizontal domain. So anything that's lateral from the seated position within your room must be treated. Priority 1, both left and right side wall reflections from your monitors. That is the first thing that must be dealt with. So those are image killers.
The sidewalls first, then.
Sidewalls first, definitely, because they're image killers. That time-delayed reflection off the sidewalls is an image destroyer.
And by image, you mean?
Well, image is that magical area between our speakers where all the things that we do as music and vocal people occurs. The speakers disappear if your room is set up correctly, and all you have is that stereo image between the speakers. And in that image, you must perform your task. You must perform your work. I do. Voice people do. Music people, engineers, mixing, control room people, they all do that within that little magical space. I think that's the space that a lot of us found magical in the beginning and got us into whatever form of music we're in right now. Voice, music, whatever the calling has been. It was for me. I just thought it was magical that two speakers could completely disappear, suspend belief, and create a soundstage of instruments and voice. To me, that was, when I heard that when I was 15 years old, I thought I had died and gone to heaven. I thought that was just unbelievably magical. And then through the years, I've realized how important the room is in that, and that's led me this direction. But that's where your definition, your separation, your tonal, your timbre qualities of your voice, everything exists in that space. You got to keep that space sacred and pure. You got to keep the room out of it, or let it in a little bit, but you have to decide how much you want to do that of. So your sidewall reflections, priority 1.
Okay, so let's say that I have a couple of, I've filled up the sidewalls, and now I have front and back walls bare. What's the priority if I only have a couple more pieces? Front wall or back wall, or are they equally important?
Well, the rear wall would be priority number 2, because here's what happens from that rear wall. You get a time-delayed reflection again. Remember, anything that strikes the surface of our room is changed in 2 ways. Its time signature is changed when it reaches the listening position, and the tonal or timbre quality of the sound and signal is changed because sound takes on the characteristics of the room or of the material that it strikes. If it strikes glass, you get glass sound. Everybody knows what that sound is. Just go in your car and listen. Shut the engine off and listen to the stereo in your car. No road noise, wind noise, or anything like that. That's glass sound. That's a terrible, terrible sound. So that sound, you can see what I mean when sound takes on the characteristic of the surface that it strikes. So you have to be very, very careful of those 2 things. So the rear wall has a slap back reflection that smears and blurs the sound stage. So when you're sitting there and you're trying to get all the definition, all the separation, all the music that's in the mix to be heard in your ears, you definitely don't want to compete with a time-delayed reflection off the rear wall. It's like having a distant relative show up wanting to borrow money. I don't know. It's a constant. It's a constant problem for you, you know, and you have to work around it. And working around your room is not the goal. The room has to work for you. You have to make the room work for you. It's not a big, bad, evil beast. It's something that can be managed correctly and produce the sound that you want. The big problem I see with people is they don't know what they want. They don't know what sound they want, and it's not their fault because they don't know what is appropriate in different situations, I think. So spending some time in your room, tuning your room, getting to know how your room enters into your sound that you're working with is, I think, very, very critical, and not enough attention is paid to it.
Okay, I'm going to just make a bit of an announcement here for folks who are recently joined us. If you want to submit questions, you can either put those in the comment section if you're watching on Google+, put the questions in the comment section, or you can put them in the comment section if you're watching on YouTube. And also, if you if you have the Google Hangout toolbar on the left where it says Q&A, click on that, and I have enabled the Q&A app, so you can also submit your questions that way. So there's lots and lots of ways to submit questions for Dennis here, if you want to get in on it. And we have still some more questions in the queue. So I am going to go back to the next one. Dennis, I'm not sure.
I'm sorry. I was just gonna tell your viewers, if you're thinking of asking a question, just ask it. It doesn't matter. You know, there's no good or bad question, and I find that even, you know, sometimes what people think to be the simplest question is often the most misunderstood. So please feel free to ask anything. There's probably not a question that you're going to ask I haven't heard a bunch of times. So for the benefit of all, please don't hesitate.
Okay, and so just to make sure that it's clear, I've been posting and talking about the acoustic foam that you developed. And in fact, behind me, you can see some on the back wall that I have there. What was your goal with this specific foam? I know you have lots of products for room acoustics, but this specific foam, like for example, I am a musician and a voiceover person, and one of the biggest bugaboos, the battle that voiceover people are always trying to fight, and often losing, is the sound of the room imparting itself onto the voice in the recording, which makes the recording sound echoey and reverb-y. So if you're talking in the room to somebody else live, you won't notice it, but you hear it on a recording and it sounds like you recorded in a bathroom. So a lot of people, especially voiceover people, but you know, anybody recording voice in a room, frequently try to employ countermeasures to stop this darn room echo that are pretty wacky sometimes. A lot of people record under the covers. Sometimes they say that's the only way they can get a clean voice recording without the room making it sound all echoey. Other people spend lots of money on third-party vocal booths that you can buy for $3,000-$4,000 and set those up in your room. Other people, sort of in the in-between cost and the in-between hassle, would be things like baffles that are semicircular things that go behind the mic to supposedly stop all the reflections getting in. They do not, by the way, stop them. They don't address the ceiling, I find. And then also there's a couple of new products on the market that you literally put your mic inside of. One of them is a box with foam in that you set your mic in. Logistically, it's tough, and the thing's pretty expensive. And now there's one that you literally stuff over your mic. It's like putting a great big, what's the right metaphor? Like a hat that goes all the way down, like putting a great big sleeping bag over the microphone. And I tried that. Not only does it not block out the room echo, but it also made my voice sound crappy. So what is your take, given that there's a whole market of people out there? What does your foam do that can help voiceover people recording in converted bedrooms?
Well, I had to laugh at the people going under the covers and the sheets in the bed, because that's actually a pretty good idea. I'd never heard that one before. So see, there you go. There's a good example of why it's good to point out observations and questions that you may find to be a little silly. But that's a great example of managing room sound. What are they doing? Let's look at exactly what they're doing and the science behind it. They're using square footage. They're using the surface area of the blankets. Now, 1, 2, 3 blankets, who knows, depends on their thickness, their absorption coefficient, etc., etc. But they're using surface area, and that's what you have to do in a room. A room is composed of 6 boundaries. All those 6 boundaries, side walls, front and rear, ceiling and floor, all contribute to the sound of the room. I would say if you had to divide them up, 20% side walls, 20% the other side walls, and split the other 60 between floor and ceiling and rear and front. That would be a pretty good estimate of how much each surface area contributes. How do you manage that? You cover surface areas with materials. And that's what sound absorption management is all about. Room sound is not your enemy. It's and in Ken's project here, I'm going to show you how it's really a bigger asset than most people realize. By the time we're done with Ken's room, he's probably never going to want to leave it. He'll probably drink his morning coffee in there. It's when you get the room sound correctly managed through a balance of diffusion and absorption, which is going to be our goal with Ken's room, you find that the room is quite comfortable. It's quite livable, and it's definitely a place where you want to do work in. So crawling under the covers, great idea. You're minimizing reflections through absorption. You'll still hear some of the room coming through the blanket, but the blanket is a large surface area, and you block out a lot of or absorb a lot of middle and high frequencies that way. But I think that might be a little bit inconvenient. Maybe not, depending on your method of operation, I guess. But it's all about surface area, and this is what people and manufacturers of acoustic products have misled people. I don't fault customers and the public for thinking like this, but a lot of acoustic product manufacturers tout the idea that foam in a box, a few boxes here and there, is all you need. Well, that's just simply not true, and I won't misrepresent that to people. 4 pieces of foam is a great start. It's a tool to get you used to how the foam performs, but it's not an end solution. Surface area has to be covered, and you have to be able to give up that area. With Ken's room, we went for about an 80% sidewall coverage. That's our start point with his room. So you can see that just doing 4 sidewalls and not managing the floor or the ceiling, we've covered a lot of ground.
Yes, to speak to that, what you see behind me is phase 2 of the foam test. We actually had the room fairly covered with foam, with barely an inch in between, and that absolutely killed the room sound, at least from my ability to hear any of it, and also from my wife's ability, Lisa, to hear any of it. We both did tests. In fact, just so that you are aware, I'm going to do a quick screen share here. And this is the post. This is the homepage for Homebrew Audio, homebrewaudio.com. And over here where it says featured post, there is the post that I put out, the article from last Wednesday. And it will talk, and it talks about the project and what I did. There's a video of me describing it. And there are some audio samples here, before and after, male and female. to give you an idea of what it sounds like when there's foam all the way around the room, and also when there's foam the way it is now, the way you see behind me, which is essentially we took down every other piece of foam, and that's where we're testing now. And it's still, the room sound is still just so low in the mix that to be essentially inaudible.
Well, that's interesting that you say that now, because we haven't had a chance to really talk about the second phase yet, but what we're doing here is giving Ken tools that he can manage his room sound. He doesn't need to be scared of it anymore. He doesn't need to realize that it's a bigger animal than he wants to shoot. It can be managed if you have the proper technology. So by putting all those units in, which was my intention, I wanted to create an environment with no room sound, and it sounds like we've achieved that with all the foam in there. Had we not, then I would have went to the ceiling. But there again, back to our discussion of surface area. Treating a room, minimizing room sound is all about surface area. And you've got to be able to give that up. If you can't give that up, you need to find a new room where you can give that up, because managing the room is not a few things here or a few things there. It's whole surfaces contributing their particular stink, if you will, to the problems in the room, and it needs to be managed. Now, that said, Auralex, Sonex, and all those other companies, when I was doing my R&D, take the approach that 100%, let's absorb as much energy as we can so that people don't have to buy as many units. That's just not right. You have to cover all the surface areas with treatment. Having a big, powerful sponge in one part of the room and nothing in another is not going to do anything for the surface area that's not covered. And this is the weird direction that manufacturers have led people. And that's, to me, is just not right. But the bottom line here is each surface area in your room contributes X. You have to first find out what that X is, and then you have to find out how to treat it. And you cannot treat it with just any kind of treatment, especially for voice. Voice and music are completely different, and we all know that. Well, hopefully all of us do in the business, you know, because I do a lot of churches. And, of course, the spoken word is one of their products. And the sung word through music is another product. And getting a room to sound good for voice and then also sound good for music, if you look at the graphs where speech intelligibility and reverberation times cross, you don't have a lot of area to work in. In fact, it's like 5 to 8% acceptable levels. You got a real narrow window. So that's why a lot of people stay away from churches. Just let them fall where they may, so to speak, because you're only going to hear the sermon and not the music, or you're going to hear the music and not the spoken word. And that's how most churches are. If you've ever been in the ones I've been in lately, it's madness, you know, and most of them don't even work for music or voice. So it's a voice and music are very, very different, and you need to take different approaches. And it's all about rate and level. And that's what took me 8 years to figure out. And that 8 years is reflected in those curves in our foam with the 4 thicknesses. We have 4 thicknesses. The 1-inch thickness is also another good foam for voice, but it's mainly for female. So we have a little flexibility between male and female here. So, but Ken obviously is working with the 2-inch.
Yes, and I've excuse me. I do. By the way, Dennis, I do take my morning coffee in the studio. Although this is tea that we're working with today. Yeah, I'm going to do another quick screen share here of Dennis's site, of the Acoustic Field site, and it has a rotating picture here, a rotating, I don't know what you call those things, but it will come up with those different curves that Dennis was talking about, as far as comparing the foam with other curves that are on the market. And it doesn't seem to be rotating now.
It's not working.
No, it's rotating. It's probably. I blame Google
Oh,
Hangouts.
it's loading. It's loading. There you go.
I'm going to blame Google Hangouts for every mishap that happens. Right, okay. So
Let's talk about. Can we talk a little bit about Don? Don is the biggest studio in Arizona. Been around for 40 years, 45 years.
Sure.
Had Orlex and Sonex in his voice room, and when he heard our foam, he took it out and put our foam in. So here's a studio, 10,000 square foot studio with a beautiful voice room for vocals. Probably could do 5 people, and really well designed. And when you hear it, you'll know. And it's hard to put into words. I can tell you all the science that behind the curves and all that, but as Ken will attest to, you got to take a little bit on faith and realize that I spent 8 years chasing voice. I figured I got a little bit of it right at least. And the more I hear our foam and the more people use it, I know I got a lot of it right.
I have to, since you say, my questions, and you can affirm this. Before I put any of the foam up, I was asking all kinds of questions about how do I objectively test the room before and after using. I wanted to use those software programs that put a burst of sound into your room, and then you can it will analyze it and give you all kind of data and numbers and curves and everything. And Dennis said, well, I encourage you to think less about that. Just trust me here, and just do your test with your ears. Just go ahead and do what you would normally do in the room, or maybe even push it to the extreme. By which I mean, we did some very loud vocal testing in the room with nothing on the walls, with the walls the way that they were. In fact, we had a bookcase against one wall and had a bunch of cassette cases against the back wall and some other things. When Dennis talks about giving up stuff, he's talking about we need to do something about those surfaces. So we moved those out so that we could put stuff on the walls. But anyway, those tests are, I mentioned this earlier, are on our site on the last post, homebrewaudio.com, that we did. And we did a bunch of very loud tests in the room, shouting, speaking, and singing. And then we did all of that with male and female voice. And then we put the foam on the walls, and we did the exact same tests again. Can you tell that we are freaks of, fans of the scientific method? So we did that, and then we listened back. And Dennis, do you remember what my comment was? I think you remembered better than I did what I said.
Well, I always look for people's first reactions, because to me, a person's first reaction, at least when and I deal a lot with musicians and voice people and vocal coaches, and to me, that first initial reaction, that when you ask them how does it sound, that's the real life, real feeling, real thing. And Ken, I believe, let me see, he said amazing and unbelievable or something. I know amazing was in there. There was another word in there, but it had equal weight as amazing. And I knew at that point that he was starting to get it. I knew he was on his way down that road to understanding. Now, what is he understanding? It's just foam. I mean, it's not a magic carpet, but it's foam that's got a special curve to it, and it absorbs energy at a particular rate and level that's conducive to human hearing and room acoustics. So that's That's what it's about, and that's takes time to kind of understand and work with, and you just need to experience it. Once you experience it, you have a new reference. That's what I like. And you know, during our lives, as we move through audio and our audio lives, we establish benchmarks or references that we accumulate and pass along this journey. And each benchmark sets a different standard for us in sound. Maybe it's a piece of gear, maybe it's a microphone, maybe it's a room treatment. But there's certain things that we take with us all the time wherever we go. If we move to a new location, enter a new studio, we take this with us. And I think this foam is one of those tools. I know it's just foam, but it's a great tool for voice. I don't know of anybody in the business that spent 8 years and $2 million going after voice. I can't even, and I know quite a few people in the industry. I don't know anyone that would be that crazy.
Okay,
So,
yeah.
I was.
Well, we're glad that you were. I think that the other word, I know that I used stunned or blown away. I used one of those or both in my post, and then there was another thing I said that I believe is something that is not family friendly on here too. So it was just, and I think you can also attest to the fact that I had my doubts at the beginning. Not so much that it couldn't absorb, that it couldn't knock down room sound to any degree, but that it couldn't do it necessarily better than some other product that you can basically stuff your mic inside. And to that end, I actually bought one of those for $200, and I stuffed my mic inside of it, and we did a blind test, my wife and I, with a voiceover with that thing stuffed over the mic, and then put the foam back up in every other configuration you see now, and then did the same voiceover, and then listened back without knowing which one we were listening to, but it was it was extremely obvious. The one that sounded like crap and that still had room echo in it, that was the other product. And the one that sounded really nice, it was the one that is set up in here with the acoustic foam on the walls. So that was basically our experience. And if people aren't aware of it, I want to just real quick remind you by going to screen share and showing you that on our home page here, homebrewaudio.com, under featured post right here, you can read about, but not only read, you can hear what we did in the room on these on these audio players here. You can hear the results of before and after of some of the things we did, and then you can hear for yourself what's what the stuff can do. So right, I'm going to.
Can we chat a little bit about that ball for a minute, because it really blends well with the discussion we've had so far. Room sound management is all about surface area. What is the ball trying to do? It's trying to short circuit that and get you a lot of performance in a small amount of space. Can't do it. It's just not good physics. It's not good physics when it comes to the microphone. It's not good physics when it comes to the human ear. That's not how we hear. And the reflections inside that foam, because you have sound energy from your voice that will bounce off that foam back into the microphone. Ken said he doesn't like the sound of his voice in there. Well, it's not your voice. It's your voice plus the ball plus the qualities, timbre and tonal qualities of the microphone. And the microphone now can't really act the way it wants to. It wasn't really designed to not deal with reflections in that particular manner. It's almost like putting too much energy into speakers. You're almost producing too much for a microphone to handle. and it wasn't designed to do that at close proximities. So you're going to get a coloration, you're going to get a mixture of 3 or 4 variables that are not really good acoustic variables. Is it convenient? Is it cool looking? Does it make kind of some sense? Yeah, it satisfies a lot of objections, but none of them are acoustically related. That's the problem.
And I think that I said on a call afterwards that the thing made my voice sound like ass. I think that those are the fairly family friendly terms that I used. And
well, there you go.
Dennis's closing remark on that call was, "Ken, don't make your voice sound like ass." So I said, "I'm with you. I'm with you. I'd rather not have my voice sound like that." Right. So I'm gonna.
Can I ask a related question?
Absolutely.
With the whole thing with
Absolutely.
the ball episode, it was kind of odd. Ken was more focused on that he could still hear room sound, but for me it was the fact that I sounded like I had a cold or I had something stuck in my ears because it made the sound envelope so small. And I know when we first were looking at the room Ken's in to do recording in there, somebody said, "Oh, hey, you have a closet. You should just build a vocal booth in your closet." And that seems to be what a lot of people go to as I will find a little tiny space because, as you say, they don't want to give up that surface area. And they find a little tiny space, and then they put up blankets or whatever and try to mitigate the room sound of the little tiny space. But it will always sound like a little tiny space. And that has an impact on what the final audio sounds like. And when you were talking about a studio that had a 10,000 square foot room, about my head blew off. But is there in your experience, an optimal size that gives you sort of a nice reflection of sound, obviously mitigated for nasty room sound, but if you know what I'm trying to say, there is an open quality when the mic's full cardioid pattern is able to do what it's supposed to do. That seems like inside the ball or inside a closet or something where you try to make a teensy-tiny vocal booth. It's obviously too small. And is there a good shorthand, or is there a good 6 feet by 8 feet, 8 feet by 10 feet that, in your experience, is optimal?
Well, it depends again on usage. If it's one person working in the room, then we have a certain size that's ideal. If it's 3, 4, 5 people in the room working, then it's a different story because we have more sources with more energy, more reflections, higher reverberation times, bigger differences between direct and reflected energy. More variables add up. I just designed a voice room for a gentleman who is recording 3 to 5 people, singers at one time, and 16 by 10 by 8 worked out really good. As far as one person goes, if it's male, then I like to see at least 10 foot in any one direction to start with. Width and height, 10 foot's always a good height. 8 foot's acceptable if we have a little width. So it just depends, but it's not a closet. Look, our ears and our brain are coordinated for millions of years in localizing distances. You can't trick a microphone and you can't trick the human ear into thinking if you're in a closet that you're in Carnegie Hall. It's just not going to work. The ear and the brain are really refined in that area of localization and separation of time signatures, you can't fool them. And that's what people, I think, are trying to do all the time, and I just don't subscribe to that. I don't think the room has to be taken out. I think it has to be managed. And that's what we try to do all the time, is manage it for people. And when you have powerful tools that are designed to do what they're supposed to do and do them in the right way, you can do that. It's not easy, and it's a little bit time consuming, but if you like music and you like good sound, the effort's definitely worth it.
Okay, I have a comment here, and Lisa, if you could post this on the Twitter and Facebook. Can you see Ali's comment there, where he said people can have their room analyzed by Dennis by filling in this form, and then there's a link for free, by the way, it says.
Yeah, definitely. Just send me your room size and send me. You can fill that form out. It's a pretty easy form. I think it's five boxes to fill out, and then there's a comment section. Tell me a little bit about what you do in the room. You know, tell me what the usage is for. Are you just doing voiceover? Are you recording acoustical instruments, non-amplified? What I'm after here is pressure levels. You know, it's an indirect way of asking how loud you're going to play in the room, because I can usually tell by voice or what instrument it is what I have to deal with in terms of pressure in the room. So, yeah, send me your dimensions, and we have a great database. For the 8 years of R&D that I did on all these technologies, I built and tested 116 rooms. I believe the smallest room is 8 by 10 by 8, or 8 by 10 by 7. I mean, it's little. All the way up to 20 by 60 by 40, and 114 rooms in between those two outside dimensions. Pressure analyzation, reverb times, all the measurements that we could make at that particular time. And we did it all manually. Today, the software and the technology, the speed and the storage has gotten so good that you don't need 12 and 16 microphones like we used to use with custom mixers. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. But what I'll be happy to do with your room is compare it to that database, and there's no problem I don't have in that database. So if your room is the same size as one of the rooms in our database, I'll be able to tell you down to the nth degree, more than you'll ever want to know, what all your problems are. And then, you know, we set about trying to figure out how to solve them, and we have those tools.
Okay. Dennis, are you ready for another question?
Go ahead.
Had this question from Dave. If someone were doing voiceover for screen share videos, this is actually something I do as well. You see how I'm sitting here with, I have my microphone on a scissor boom on a corner of my desk so I can swivel it in, you know, away, etc. Anyway, so this person has a 26-inch monitor right in front of them, and they're wondering if they have foam on the walls. Let me make sure I have his question exactly right. Would the foam still be effective on the walls, or would the screen still cause problems? And if it would cause problems, what would be the solution?
Two issues here. We have the reflections from the walls. That's a separate issue from a process that's coming off the screen. Now, when sound energy strikes the walls and then strikes the screen, we have a process that's called comb filtering. Comb filtering then is a back and forth between maybe the right wall and the screen, the left wall and the screen. It's called a comb filter because on a graph, the data looks like a series of combs, the teeth of a comb. It's a similar pattern that's repeated with sharp edges, just like a comb would be. So the screen produces another surface for sound to reflect upon and off of. So that creates a comb filter. Now, what is a comb filter? A comb filter becomes a speaker. So now the reflections from your screen are going back and forth, maybe between the wall, maybe between your console and the screen. Whatever is interacting in that domain is causing a phantom image. It's producing a sound at a particular frequency. You can measure the frequency on a graph. You can hear the frequency anybody can hear it. All of us could hear it if you just focus upon it and listen. Put your head next to the screen, you'll hear it. The bottom line here is you have to watch the surface areas. You have to watch the angle of the reflection. And I know we all have to work off screens and things like that. It's just a fact of life today, but they're really acoustical nightmares, and they create a lot more problems than they're really worth. I think the best screen I ever saw in a studio was buried in the table. He had it recessed into the table, and it was just elevated enough so he could see it, but it didn't produce any effects of comb filtering, at least in the domains he was concerned about. So I always thought that was a great idea, but comb filtering is a whole other set of issues, and you have to be really careful with that. Mixing engineers face it all the time because they have their monitor sitting on top of their mixers. And the low energy from the driver hits that console and hits them right in the face. And it's delayed in time between the direct signal from the speaker. So that delay and that amount of energy striking the console creates another sound. So we're creating sounds with the physical aspects of our gear, which we definitely don't want in the room. So that all can be dealt with, through ray tracing and stuff like that. Complicated, just trust your hearing and listen to the reflection. Put your ear close to the console. Put your ear close to the screen. You'll hear something you don't like. If you hear it at that close proximity, you won't like it far field. If you can hear it near field, you're going to hate it far field.
So to answer, if he were to have some foam behind the monitor, then he could at least mitigate the comb filtering?
No, because the reflections will strike the surface of the screen. I need to know the angle and where those reflections are headed. Are they headed to the ceiling? Are they headed back to the listening position? Are they headed to the floor? What's the angle of attack that we have to deal with? So it may not be any acoustical treatment at all. It may just be a little bit reconfiguration and repositioning.
That makes sense.
I'd be more than happy to help you with that. Comb filtering is a pain in the butt. I deal with it all the time. I'm actually dealing with it right now. I'm surrounded by pieces of our foam right now. But the bottom line here is you have to work with it, and maybe putting a piece of fabric across the face of the screen might be beneficial. There's some pretty cool fabrics that you can get right now. We're working on a few of them that are almost permeable enough that you can see the screen behind if you're not doing real detailed work, and do have some absorption properties that will have the horsepower to make some sense. But probably in a system where you're needing to view the screen and look at it constantly, it's a necessary evil, so to speak, then we probably have to work with repositioning.
Okay. So let's see, where are we now? Questions. Remember, if you have questions, you can post them on Twitter with hashtag RoomFoam, ROOMFOAM, or you can post them here in the chat on the webinar. If you're in YouTube, use the comment section. If you're in Google Plus watching, use the comment section. And or hey, just send me an email. I can check that every now and then too. But for the questions that we already have, what we have next here is you've already answered that one. What is the difference between your acoustic fields foam and the other foams that have been on the market for a long time, like Auralex Studio Pro, for example? because I've looked at the Auralex Studio Foam Pro, and it comes in I think 1.5 thickness and little squares that are 2 by 2, which are similar to the size that you have. So the difference between them would be
the rate and level of absorption.
So is that curve?
Ours has a particular. That's the big difference. I mean, if you want to boil it all down into one thing, that's the big difference, and that's the most important. Absorbing at the right rate and level in small room acoustics is critical, and people just don't pay attention to it. It took me a couple years to figure that out. When I was testing, I would listen to the male voice, and we all know from working in voice that male voice, that lower region, 200 cycles, 150 maybe in some situations, up to 250. There's a foundation, a quality, a tone, a timbre to a male voice that defines it as a male voice, and I believe it lies in that range. And that's what's critical to get. Female, not so much. Theirs is a more upper register thing for definition. But with males, you know, I don't want to say low, mid, or anything like that, because everybody has different definitions of what those things are. I asked a question in some forums one time, what's your definition of low frequency? And I got 21 answers. Different. You know, so I think everybody has a little bit different. But that 150, 200, 250 range for male voice is critical to get right. And you don't get it right over absorbing. You can't destroy energy, if you will, and change it to heat in order to manage it. You just don't do that. Energy's too costly. It's too valuable. Look at the price of amplifiers. Look at the price of cables. Look at the price of speakers. Do we really want to absorb so much of that precious, expensive energy that we can't hear it in order to manage it? No, that's just not the right approach. It's not covering the room in molasses, so to speak, in order to achieve something. It's selectively targeting the frequency response of vocals and applying the correct rate and level of absorption so that you get definition, you get separation, you get a tonal quality that's human. And I'm not hearing that. I'm not hearing that in today's voice. And that's what's making me insane. I'm hearing this sterile, dry, monotonous sound that has no life or emotion to it. It's all calculated and programmed, and it's just not real. It's not. I think voiceovers and anybody that's working in voice right now, I don't feel that emotional connection to voice like we do with music. Music today, with higher resolutions and better dynamics and much better gear and speakers and amplifiers, you can connect emotionally. And voice is such an important area that we need to connect in emotionally too. But I'm not hearing the same level of emotional connectivity in voice in today's recordings as I am in music. And that's why we've taken on your project, because I'm pissed off and I want to change that. I think we can. I think we really can, with the right approach, the right room treatment package, and I think we can make our room work for us. I think we can put the human back in voice, and that's what I'm after.
Okay, so the main difference, you said the rate and the level. What you don't want to happen is for foams to over-absorb and to do it too quickly in order to suck the life out of your voice, which is what a lot of the foams do. They're put out there to be all things to all people, and I know that Dennis designed this foam to zero in on the range that is prominent for the human voice, which will treat it in the proper way instead of just sucking all the life out of it and make it sound more natural. One of the things I don't think I mentioned that I just remembered thinking when I heard my wife's voice coming over the voiceover test that we did, was that there were overtones in the voice. If you're familiar with the frequency spectrum at all, and you ever do any EQing, sometimes people add a little bit of what they call sparkle or air by adding EQ up around 10 or 12 kilohertz. I don't do that very often, but sometimes on a female voice it can make it sound more interesting or more intimate, even a male voice too. But I listened to it and I heard those overtones. I heard energy at that frequency in her voice with the foam on the wall. And I thought, man, it sounds like I EQ'd this, but I didn't. So that's one of the differences right there. Right. Let's see.
There you have just hit upon the reason for the design of the foam. You've heard what I designed for, and now I'm very impressed. You've made my day.
Oh,
because
good.
overabsorption destroys harmonics. If the fundamental doesn't get a chance to live and grow and breathe, what chance does the harmonic have? You got to take all that into consideration, the fundamental and the harmonic. Not kill the one and to sacrifice the other. And there's where the emotional connection lies for us. It's those overtones and those harmonics that make things human. Thank you for hearing that. You've made my day.
You're welcome. And this was not, ladies and gentlemen, not scripted in any way. I actually just now remembered that was a reaction that I had, and I don't think I put that on the post. So maybe I should add that to the post as being relevant to what we're talking about.
Ken, right. I was just going to jump in, sorry, quickly, in the chat there. I've put a link to the graph that we've been talking about, if you want to put that on screen at any time.
I believe, let's see, I will bring that up. And I believe also Lisa has posted these, both of them, onto the Twitter, if you're following there, and onto our Facebook page. Let me put it up here. Let's see, make sure I don't. I tried doing a screen share using this monitor, and it ended up with an infinite loop. I almost sent myself back in time. Okay, here we go. I'm pasting it in. Okay, let's see. Here we go. And screen sharing that. So this is what, Ali, this is what you were talking about there?
Yes, yeah, yep. Sorry, I was just on mute.
And that's okay. And you can see, I mean, can we put that graph back up and I'll walk people through it real quick?
Yeah, it's gonna, the way Google Hangouts works is it will show up when I'm talking and it won't show up when you're talking. Because I'm doing a screen share on a separate monitor. So what I'll do is I'll direct people's attention to the lines here, and periodically, Dennis, if you throw it back to me, if you're going to refer to it, and then I will say, you know, okay, here's the graph again, or whatever, so that it will go back on the screen.
Well, I'll just make one comment about it, because Google needs to go back to the drawing board on this one. Anyway, look at the curve. Look how smooth it is. That's a natural curve. And that's what took 8 years to figure out. Well, about 6. I got mad after year 2 and threw everything away and started over. So about 6 years of R&D. But that's what's critical right there, and that's really all people need to know. There's all kinds of other cool things, but that's the main difference right there. The rate and the level, and it's all about the smoothness.
So what Dennis is saying here is that this red curve represents the response of the foam that we're talking about from acoustic fields, and these other two, and this is a nice natural curve as opposed to the two black curves, which are the responses from two of the most popular competing acoustic foams. Right. So let's take that off of there, just so you can see my pretty face again. Okay. Right. Another question. This is kind of off it's a different kind of a question, but one of the questions is your foam fire resistant?
Well, it is, and we need to get that information up on the website. It meets all the specifications required and the testing and the codes and everything. And no, it's I don't know. I can't I can't think of the initials of the certification, but no, it's I've installed this foam in over 200 buildings.
Commercial
probably commercial buildings, probably 2 million square feet over 10 years. So we haven't had any issues yet. Of course, none of the buildings have burned down.
Well, and so everybody knows, he wouldn't have been allowed to put it in a commercial building without it being up to fire.
No.
So.
No,
okay.
It's quite safe. Look, if I'm going to spend all that time and energy and money making something that works so well, I definitely don't want to have some fire marshal telling me I can't use it.
Yeah, exactly. That would be bad. Definition of a bad day.
That would be.
Okay.
Yes, it would be.
Next question here. I am both a voiceover artist and also a musician doing mixing of music in my room. Is there a different way to place the foam than for someone who is just recording their voice in the room?
No, not really. It's the lateral dimension. It's the side and the front walls, priority 1 and priority 2, and the rear wall that we need to be concerned with. Floor and ceiling, not so much, because the floor is, I mean, in terms of priority, yes, it needs to be treated. Yes, it needs to be calculated in. But the side walls, the front and the rear, are probably your starting points. And work with that particular area. And once again, send me your room dimensions and draw a little diagram. Look, it doesn't have to be fancy. Just draw a little box. Show me the relative positions of everything, the microphone and the anything else. Think of your room as a box, and all inside the box, when you open the roof or the lid, is all these toys that make sound. So where are those toys in the box? That's what I need to know as an engineer. That's what I need to know in terms of energy and pressure. I don't think of a musical instrument as a musical instrument. I think of it as a sound-producing energy source, because that's how I have to think in terms of physics. The big task for us in the business as engineers is making all that technical stuff sound human. And that's why I created the curves on my foam. My foam is more human foam than anything. I like that. I'm going to start using that.
Human
but
foam.
The bottom line here is yes to your question, and maybe no, depending on usage and what you're doing in the room. So once again, go to that link, fill it out, send it to me, and I'll be happy to tell you where to put things and how far above the wall, and you'll get sick of hearing from me, because I'll tell you within the inch where to put it.
Tell us what. Oh yeah, that actually is a good segue to the next question, because where to put it also leads into how to put it. And the question is the foam easy to mount on walls? In other words, is it light and flexible, and how would you recommend putting it up?
Well, remember, our room is a tool, and it's a tool that we have to polish and sand and take the rust of it off and things like that. So we need to go through a tuning process. Where we start our process and where we end up with our process may be completely different. So we need to be able to put our foam up as one of those tools in this process in a temporary manner. Temporary manner, we have these huge, maybe I can show them to everybody. I don't know, can you see that?
Yes.
It's just a huge thumbtack that we use, and we're able to get them locally here, and they work great for putting the foam up on a temporary basis, because I guarantee you, where you start from will not be where you end up. And Ken is in that process right now. He's now using every other piece of foam. So if he'd have glued those pieces to the wall, he wouldn't be able to take them down. So in answer to your question, temporary installation first, room tuning process second, and then a final install as you decide what is good for what you're doing and you're happy with that position. How do you know you're happy with it? When you don't move it during a 60-day period. I know that's not scientific. It's an unobtrusive measure of success, but nonetheless, if you're happy with it and you're doing your job in the room and you haven't moved it in 60 days, that's where it'll stay.
Yeah, those tacks are what I've used. They come in a little box like this, and that's what everything behind me you see. In fact, you could probably see the little blue dot on the bottom of the one on there on the left. That is one of these. Let's see, how do I get it to the camera? One of these tacks here. So yeah, and they are lightweight. They can be held up. I just moved the one that's behind my workstation here. I moved the right one over by 6 inches yesterday. And I did that because
that's part of the room tuning process.
Yeah, I'm looking at my 2 speakers, and I want to make sure that things are symmetrical. And so how much foam do I see sticking out from the left and the right? And as I look this way and that, I want it to be symmetrical, so I had to move one of them over. But yeah, I'm constantly moving these things, taking them up and putting them down for different testing, and they go up. In fact, I did a little estimate yesterday. For me, it took about, my room is about 12 by 12 roughly, and I had, right now I have, 12 pieces I think up around the room. It took me 1 minute to take them down, if that gives you any idea of how easy and convenient it is to work with these pieces of foam. It took me literally 60 seconds to take these pieces of foam down. It takes closer, if you want putting them up, using those tacks, it takes closer to about 15 minutes to put them up. But still, you're not talking about any kind of investment. The person that asked this question specifically, let me make sure I get the wording right. I jumped question there. Let's see. The person does the phone. Not that one. Well, I can't exactly find it. Maybe I wrote it down wrong. But the person wanted to know if they had a dual-use room. Some people maybe have a room that they can use during the day or during the week as a recording room, and then they have to take it down so that they can eat in there, or so that they can have guests in there, or whatever. And that's why they asked that question. How long does it take to convert the room? So 15 minutes is about how long it takes to put up, and about 1 minute to take it down. And that's in a 12 by 12 room with about 12 pieces of foam up on the wall. That was my experience.
It took me 6 years to find those pins.
Really?
Yeah. So I tried. Oh, you wouldn't believe the methods that we've gone through to temporarily attach it, because it's 2 inches thick. You know, it's a high density foam. So, and you have to come at it from an angle, as you quickly realized. So yeah, it took a long time to find something. You know, we basically stumbled upon them. And any foam that you order from us, I always have the guys throw some stuff, enough tacks in for you. So you'll always have them in your order.
Oh, that's good to know. That's great to know. Yeah, I know. You sent me. They also it says Office Max on my packet here. So even if you need more, or if you lose,
that's where we get them.
Yeah. So not much easier than that. Okay, let's see. What are we doing time-wise? We have about 15 more minutes to go.
Can I jump in with a comment?
Please.
I want to go back to the concern about, are these fire retardant. I happen to be the allergy queen. I've got a lot of really bizarre allergies, one of which happens to be to plastic, and I'm also very sensitive to smells. And when you open the box when we opened the box with these foam panels, it was like, oh my God, there's no way I'm ever going to be able to be in the room with these things. We put them out to air, we put them in the sun, we put days and days and days, put them up on the wall. I still couldn't stand to be in there for more than a few minutes. They're okay now. It does eventually go away, but for anybody who maybe gets the box and opens it up the first time and says, I cannot live with this smell, it is temporary. It will dissipate. It will take a long time. The more sensitive you are, it will take a while, but it really does dissipate. And if I can stand it, anyone can stand it.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting because I got to tell you that in 10 or 15 years of installing this foam, that's the first time I've heard that. So I don't know what the case of that is. I never had that occur in 2 million square feet of installation over a 15-year period. Maybe there was a particular outgassing situation going on in your shipment. Maybe they didn't get left out long enough in the drying process, which we do. Maybe I rushed the guys and had them circumvent that a little bit to get can his foam quicker. I don't remember exactly what happened, but I got to tell you, when you did say that, and obviously I don't doubt it, and foam will outgas. But we do at the factory, we lay it out in the Arizona sun, and my best guess is you just got some foam that was rushed through that process, and I might have done it to expedite the process a little bit, but I've never had that come up. But foam will outgas, like all products that are synthetically manufactured. You have gases that occur during the assembly process, and then as time goes on, they outgas and release themselves from the product, and we know that, and that's just one of the things inherent with foam, and we have a procedure in our process of manufacturing that does that. Setting the foam out in 110-degree sun does amazing things to it. It really gets rid of any impurities at all, so to speak, that are in it. But I found that interesting when you said that, and that I thought through it, and that's probably what happened, because we've never had that occur before, and we were getting busy with our foam orders, and maybe the guys rushed the process a little bit. That would be the only explanation I could come up with.
Well, and I'm like the princess in the pea that, sleeping on top of 5 feet of mattress, I can still feel the pea underneath. Back when I was working in California as an accountant, one of my clients was Card Key, and I was there for a week, and I was fine, and all of a sudden I started coughing, and I couldn't stop, and I said, what the hell happened at 2 o'clock? And they said, we got a shipment of plastic. And enough of the smell of that had come through the air ducting that I had to leave the building. So I'm really, really sensitive to this stuff. So it may be partly a rush, deal, and it may partly just be that I'm the canary in the coal mine. But I just wanted to say, if it got to the point where I can take it, anyone can take it.
Yeah, she's an extreme example, and yeah,
it's an outgassing scenario, and we know that. We know it happens, and it happens with a lot of products that are manufactured, especially using the materials that we use. It's polyurethane, so it's a petroleum-based situation. So, but it does occur in the drying process, and I think you guys probably got a batch that was rushed a bit through that. We usually put it out for 3 days. That's why when you do get an order of our foam, it's a 2 to 3 week process.
We just wanted to know.
All our foams are handmade.
On the
Yeah,
off
all our
chance that
foams are
someone
handmade.
does
We just
delays. Oh, we get these delays. They're Google Hangouts. I guess they got a lot of moving parts, but anyway, we just want folks to know that on the off chance they do get a batch that there might be any smell, it goes away, and people deal with this with memory foam pillows, all the time too. It just has to be out in the open air, and it'll eventually be gone, so it's fine. No worries about that. It's not going to linger. Let's see. Questions. How time-wise? We have 10 more minutes. Ollie, at what point do you want to talk about the special deal?
Now is a good time. Well, we had a great reaction from your audience last week after the final video that you did. So that was great, and we knew that we were going to do this webinar, so we thought, well, those people attending, those people listening, if they want to take advantage, we're going to throw that 20% discount in again for everybody. If they use coupon code HomebrewAudio at checkout, they can get 20% off their order, and that will run until Saturday at midnight, this coming Saturday, the 24th. And as Dennis said, obviously, if people want to have their room analysed before that, go and fill in that form that we've shared with you. Dennis can help you out there, and that's the promotion that we're offering. Dennis spent a lot of time doing this. We want to help people get their rooms right. Voice is so important, and throw that offer open to your audience.
All right, and if people, I'm going to put the screen share up here again. If you want the details of that, okay, I have to start screenshot. There we go. I can be taught. Okay, if you want to take advantage of the 20% discount that is good until this coming Saturday night at midnight, on our site, homebrewaudio.com, I have put a new link in our nav bar that says acoustic foam. I'm circling it on the monitor and not on the actual screen. There we go, right here, acoustic foam. And if you click that, it takes you to a page eventually. There we go. I've got a little reminder down here of when the offer expires, but you can click on down here where it says special offer, so that there's no doubt. Click on that, and it'll take you to the Acoustic Fields page. And if you put in Homebrew Audio without the quotes at checkout, there will be a place for you to enter a coupon code, and that will yield you 20% off of the price. So that is an excellent deal, which I highly recommend you take advantage of. And like I said, that expires on Saturday night. So let's see. Make sure if we have any more questions. Let me make sure that I got them all. Let's see. Okay. I do have another, we have time for another question or two, don't we? Just real quick.
Sure.
24? Yeah? Okay. I have quick ones. I have noisy neighbors. Will the foam help keep their noise out?
Okay. Well, foam is a sound-absorbing technology, not a barrier technology. So if you want to keep sound out of your room, you need to build a barrier between the sound source and yourself. And foam is no barrier.
Got it. So we kind of talked about that before.
Yeah, I think we've addressed that issue. Two different kinds of technology working here.
Got it. This is not noise proofing. Okay. What other acoustic tools should I be thinking about using when it comes to music and voice?
Well, we have to then get back to usage. Are we doing music? Are we doing voice in the room? What's our purpose? Are we recording amplified, unamplified? What microphones are we using? It's all about usage. We have to make the usage of the room and the pressure levels that that usage requires match the volume and the dimensions of the room. And that's the rub. That's the difficult part. How do we get the usage to fit the room? Not necessarily getting rid of the room because of the usage. We're trying to change the way people think about things, and the people want to get rid of the room because they don't know how to deal with it. It's complicated. It's confusing, and it's not really. And when you understand and have a technology that's predictable and consistent in performance, you'll see how much of an asset you can make this room. It's not a lot the liability everybody thinks it is.
So I've heard talk about something called diffusers. Would that be something I would add at some point, maybe?
Well, we're going to use diffusers in your room down the road, but in order to use diffusion is a binary tool, meaning it's either off or on. It only has two switches. So you only can diffuse what you have correctly treated within your room. So if you haven't treated all the issues in your room correctly, diffusion will take those untreated issues and magnify them and make them worse. So we have to use absorption to treat all the necessary reflections and delay times and reverb times and all of that correctly. When we get that done, then we're ready to say, all right, I like what I'm hearing. I don't find any issues that are jumping out at me. I want more. Okay, I'll give you more, but you got to make sure that more is not less. And I want to make sure that you have it all comfortable and figured out and you're happy with the sound that you want. And when you tell me, I really like the sound that I got, but I would like a little bit more of this, that, or the other, and I hear you tell me that, then I know you're ready for diffusion. But when you tell me, well, I'm still not comfortable with this, I still don't like this sound or that sound, then we need to figure out how to resolve that first. Diffusion is chocolate syrup on ice cream. The ice cream is good, but the syrup really makes it way better.
And if the ice cream is bad, the syrup's not going to help.
Well, if the ice cream's not good to begin with, what good is it putting syrup on it?
Good metaphor. I like metaphors.
Yep.
Okay.
Diffusion's a great tool. Diffusion's a wonderful tool, but it'll hurt you if you don't have things done right in the beginning.
Got it.
Because it's like a magnifying glass. It will make everything, warts and all, come to the surface.
Okay, I got one last question here, and that is, can foam be used to handle bass problems in my room?
Well, this is a common misunderstanding I see a lot of, and the answer is unequivocally no. It just doesn't have the horsepower, the density, the technology to do that. It's a middle and high frequency absorbing device. Low frequency technologies are completely different. Low frequency technologies are as different to foam as barrier technologies are to foam. All three completely different approaches. Foam is a middle and high frequency, economical, easy to place, easy to ship tool that you can use to control reverberation times because of excess reflections. Are there other tools? Yes. But bass management, lower frequency management, anything below 100 cycles, you need special technologies that are heavy, difficult to position sometimes, and a lot more expensive foam. But we have them. You can get them. That's our carbon technology. And bass is another issue that a lot of people have problems with. That could be a whole nother webinar.
Yeah. Okay. Great. All right. Well, that's about all the time we have. I want everyone to know that the URL for the YouTube video, if you happen to be watching this on YouTube, then you already have that. But if not, I'll put it in the chat here one more time. Let's see. There's the YouTube URL. You will be able to watch this recording of this broadcast from now until eternity, the ending of the world. So at that link that I just put in there, it'll be available for you to watch if you weren't able to catch this thing live. And Dennis, I want to thank you very much for offering us your time and your expertise. It's been great to get your knowledge here. And
well, you're all welcome, and those of you that take advantage of this offer and buy some of our foam, for that discount, I'm going to ask you to tell us how much you like it, because it's important that I think more people understand how powerful and important voice is, and I don't think it's getting the attention and the credit. At least the sound quality of it is not today, so anything we can all do to further that is definitely welcome.
All right. Ali, anything else to say in parting?
No. I think we've covered everything. We, as I said, just make sure fill out that room form. We'll help you design a solution for your room. Dennis will impart his expertise on that, and yeah, just don't miss this this opportunity. We very rarely discount, but we've had a great time doing your room. So you know, we're happy to do this for your audience, and yeah, just take advantage of it right now.
All right. Well, that's all we have time for today. Like I said, this broadcast will be available to play on Google Plus, on the Homebrew Audio Google Plus page, and on the YouTube page that I've given out. Thank you for being a part of our webinar today, everybody, and I will see you guys out there on the web. Bye.
Thanks.